All right, not exactly back to back, but very close. All right, got notes. Want to be sure I'm trying to work on just staying on task. I'm trying to work on just referring to Cari and me and I, but I'm not monitoring. So if you do, I'm sorry if it bothers you. We have a lot of new pronouns in our world, so we got to get used to it, I guess. So a lot of this stuff you already know. She's just going to give you like a run through of how she got here, and she's going to try and stay on task. As y'all know, well, you probably all don't know, but before you come into this incarnation, you plan it. You sit down. I've heard the reference for, just to see it in the human mind, of like a football stadium. You're in a football stadium and it's full, and these are the people that are going to be in your life, the people you're going to cross into or run into, and everybody's going to have some reason for you to bump into them. So we pre-plan all this stuff. One's going to be the guy that shoots you, one's going to be the child that dies. It's like we pre-plan everything. Paralyzation, my wife leaves me, we pre-plan it. But the thing is, we plan these like doozy obstacles. Like in Cari's life, she planned a terrible, torturous, abusive childhood. Then after she got out of the childhood, she had to have the biggest boobs in high school. She was able to have them surgically removed right after graduation. It was like all these things that were extreme for her. She had 2 sisters, drop dead gorgeous, and she had like these teeth that was like, she got braces her senior year. So, yeah, it was like not a very fortunate childhood, very well planned. Oh yeah, and that was a chubby little thing. I remember at 16, overhearing my mother say something to somebody about, it's just baby fat. I had to say, Mother, I'm not a baby anymore. Yeah, so my childhood, it was tough. I had a really tough childhood. It was like, but it was stuff that I had the breast reduction surgery. I moved to California afterwards. So it was like, I got through it. And then when I met my knight in shining armor, he moved me to Ohio, getting me away from Vegas and the drugs and the sex and the rock and the roll of just the downward spiral. It was like, and then I found out wherever you go, there you are. He was daddy number 6. It was just like all these things I just kept getting into. It was like, life can't be fair. But then after some self-help books and a little bit of self-inventory and a promise to herself, she got out of there. And that was the biggest one, because that was leaving an abusive life, emotionally abusive. She got there to Ohio. She's like, oh yeah, wherever you go, there you are. And then she was alone, 2,500 miles away from anybody she knew, and basically a captive. Yeah, it was pretty fun. So she left that, and that was huge for her. But that, she had to mourn for like 5 years. I mean, she just still is like your comfort zone. When you're a victim of dysfunction and you live in that depression, you're suicidal, all this stuff, when you live in that space, you just know that. So you want to go back, you need to go back, but you know you can't go back, but you want, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So she had a really tough, I think it was another 5.5 years before she kind of flipped the switch a little and then started moving on. And that was when the good things started happening. Once you drop the victim card, and she dropped that card, once she did, it was like, she had been on this kind of ride, kind of like this. It was like, and that, at the bottom of that, at this, right before this, that's when I met my ex-husband, the one I was just married to. So he was on that path. She was on this path. But at that intersection, then she went, so that's why the wedge between them was like, she was just a different person, like in days. So she got through all these roadblocks, all these things. And so this marriage, having the child, and all the things that they had in this marriage that they had to deal with, I mean, just the frustrations, the anger, all that stuff that we set ourselves up for. And when you look at it from that perspective, and you look at the person that you're with and how they're treating you, try and look at it from the perspective of, dang, they are playing their role well. Because they are. You guys agreed that they need to push that button and push that button and push that button until you don't let them push the button anymore. And that is all this is about. But so once she finally, recently, completely unplugged from him and was able to see him from a different lens and from who he is, where she was, like vibrationally, because now where she is, it's like anybody that leaves a space then improves and takes care of themselves. You look back at it and it's like, oh, how did I do that? She's light years beyond where she was now. She just stayed in it because that's all she knew. She was stuck in it. She cared. It's her family. But what she was able to unplug, it's like and plus put her phone away. She can't stand her phone. It's like the sound of a ping, like, somebody wants to reach me. She had to turn off all of her notifications. She can't have any badges showing what she's not seeing. If she feels guided, she'll go to WhatsApp and see if there's a message. Depending on who it's from, she'll open it. Same with text, anything. She can't do her phone. The phone has to be there for her dictation and for her pictures and for her music. And so it's like she hates this thing desperately now, and these videos that now I have to do. But as far as like the phone thing, and this came to her too one day. The whole idea that these devices they've replaced everything, including our brains. And it just, when we started showing her she just wanted to start not using it anymore. And then she started turning it off. And it was the thought of seeing it. So she would turn it off. And so she started seeing what it felt like back in the day when we didn't have these. And you kind of wondered what people were up to. You didn't know. And you didn't know what they had for dinner last night. You didn't know what color shirt they have on this morning. You don't know all this stuff. And it was that feeling of you picked up the phone and you called somebody because you have no idea what's going on in the universe. And you catch up, and it's that feeling of connection. Oh my God, that's why I did it. It's that we're missing that feeling of connection. And so she's known, it's like, I don't want this thing anymore. So she doesn't use it. That's why people try and get a hold of it. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't have it. It's because, many of you don't even know what that means. Like my child. They don't know what that, oh man, I'm going off on another tangent, but I'm not leaving it. So there's a lot of other sides to what's gone on. But once I unplugged completely from my ex, I felt, and I've been prior to this, and this is, I think, key, because I was with a bunch of friends when my child was young. I was like the party planner, and the drama was so intense. And there came a time, and I'm just like, I'm done. I need to back out of this. And so I walked away. My family was devastated because I was the event planner for everything, the social director. I walked away, and I mourned that, but I'm like, I have to do it. And then at that point, I didn't know what to replace it with, so I started walking. And that's when your email and your cell, which I didn't use very much, went from just stuff all the time to not one email. It was like I flipped a switch, and I walked away from that, and it just felt icky. I'm like, the drama felt icky, but once I walked away and took a few breaths, and I was able to look back at it through that removed lens, that I've elevated lens. You elevate as soon as you leave a situation. You zoop up to where you're supposed to be because you've been stuck at that elevation. So once I left there, I started walking, and it was like, and then you see it from it was like the drama. And it's like, and the who wants to please who. It's like, oh my God, the stuff we did. I was so deep in that. And I've got stories about it, man. I've got stories that I'll share about those days and how when we collectively think together on how we make really stupid stuff happen. So once I started walking, I started quieting my mind. And that's when I met a woman miraculously who recommended a book and then recommended Audible because I commuted. And from that moment, I had my awakening. And I found a trail of breadcrumbs in the form of books that each one made its way to me. I've got my book list. I get to anybody who wants it. Anything I know, I'm happy to share. I've written everything. But these books, the one that really was notable was, I think it was the third book I listened to, Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. When you listen to this for the first time, and when you're not spiritual or present, you hear this guy's voice. He talks like this, and it's very mellow. It's so quiet and calm. It's like floating waters. It's like lily pads. And then this guy says, You need to just be present. You know, there's no, it's not tomorrow, it's not today, just be here right now. And I'm like, dude, it's like, who can do that? And literally, this is where it was like my aha moment. So as I would listen to a book, hearing it, what I didn't know until much later, I was basically, it was like it was a microchip. I was being downloaded with the information to like open that circuit to remember that I knew all this stuff. And if I found I got a book, another book on the same subject, it was like I would start listening. It was like, no. It's like, I know. It was like that lane was opened. So I was able to travel in it freely and look all over it without having to ever hear another topic about it. It's like it gave me the entire subject, like download, all infused within me. So the Eckhart Tolle book about presence, the power of now, I was walking through the woods. Hello, Marley. I didn't know my dog joined me. I was walking through the woods one day. My daughter had been in Washington, D.C. for about 10 days. And my phone rang, and my friend Danny called, and he said, hey, how you doing? You know, hey, do you miss your kid? And I'm like, no, I really don't. And he said, that's really great. And like, he said, you're present. That's what you want. And I'm like, and it hit me, it's like, I have not thought about her for a minute. She'd been gone like 11 days. Are you really stuck here? Excuse me. So I had not thought about my daughter. And so that was, I think, maybe 2 weeks after I listened to that book. And that was the first experience I had to where I realized that I was present. I was no longer thinking about a to-do list, about the future, about yesterday, about people. I lived in the present. And it was just by one book. I read it, but I infused the stuff within me and I knew it. So after I got through all those books, and then Carolyn Mace topped them off with the power of holy language, like, holy cow, you know, it's like you get to remember everything. It's like, it's funny because my abilities now, I get all kinds of downloads, all this stuff, but I've never been a visual to where I've never had an out-of-body experience or near-death experience, so I can't see what it's like on the other side of the realm. My life right now, everything is in amazing brilliance. It's like I see now, like when I'm at the ocean and when it's raining and you see rain hit the water, you see every raindrop has a bubble. It's like you see the most finite detail of all these details. Or when there's a bird dive bombing another bird, you know, we all watch that. But I wasn't watching the dive bomber. I was watching the one who was deflecting, and it was like Top Gun. I mean, the stuff that I've never seen before, the stuff that I see in the clouds. So living from these senses and then being present, it's just like, I mean, this has just been the path that once you get there, you're not going to go backwards. So that's how my path has taken me like lightning speed up to where I am now. In a course of 6 years, I listened to the first book. The first one, for people who ask, was Money and the Law of Attraction by Abraham Hicks. And again, I should make a PDF of my book list and I should do that. I'll put it in YouTube. That's a good idea. See, I like this higher self thing. The stuff I come up with, it's brilliant. It totally is. So since I moved here, and my book is going to cover everything. Literally, it's like I've got great detail because I journal every single day. Boy, do I journal. Boy, I do journal. So the book will have all the great details, but literally the path has been, I went to Sedona, Arizona in May of last year, 2021. And I met someone who would only live for 8 more weeks, but they had to meet me before they died. When they died, they went to heaven, and then they became the conduit between me and the divine. I found this out through a friend who met with him and talked to him after he died, that my life, it's crazy. So the whole book is about that. So this man I meet, and he's going to connect me to God, and he's going to help me write my book. And then I started automatic writing. It was like, I'm crying. My fingers are going faster than they've ever typed before with no errors, and that never happens. And I'm crying because it's not coming from me. It's like my fingers are doing it, and it's really fast. But as I'm reading it to see what it says, it's just like, it's like information that I need to know. So automatic writing started, and then my book, as it went on, I did have somebody proofread the first 2 sections, and they noticed too, I said the writing is going to change drastically because I had a ghostwriter after that. So now the working title of the book was Homeless with a Dead Boyfriend. Having that happen, pretty crazy. So now I feel this man, I see where, he brings me roses. So after that, it can only get better, right? I end up having a direct meeting with somebody I did not know could exist. I have never gone to church. I had 5 fathers and never been to church, never had religion ever exposed to it in my life. And so I have gone in the back door without having to go to those buildings that people go to on Sunday that they don't need to be going to because Jesus never said that. It's like, no, just go live that way. Don't go there to repent because you didn't. Yeah, just go live that way and forget the box in the middle. But so I met God. Had a direct meeting with God to realize that I've been walking with God my entire life, and it's been beautiful, and I've been shown glimpses into how my life was so filled with God and how I manifested miracles, and why I'm here, why I get all this, why I get this prize is because I just said yes. I started saying yes to only things that I wanted to say yes to. In my marriage, I think it was 10, I don't know, it was probably 6 years when this started. I just started saying no to things that I said yes to. And I really want you to think about this because you do this all the time. Everyone does. Everyone. It's like I talk to people very little. I don't like people right now. I can't be around them. But I talk to people and it's like every single time they say something that has to do with them lying to a partner, it's like, it's all we do. So I started saying no to those things, and that's when the shift happened. That's when it was like the upset, because he would be like, it's like, but you always say yes. And then after that, it's like between the silence, and the silence had me just shut up, turn off my phone, and I went inside. I closed everything away, and I'm not a good meditator. I can't sit and go om for 20 minutes or even for an hour. I walk when I meditate because I have a lot of energy. And I do sit sometimes when I'm told to, but meditation is quiet your mind however you need to and just listen to your thoughts and let everything else, not your thoughts, let everything else out and listen to what comes to you that is not from you. That is your higher self. So this is all Cari has done. She stopped listening to what was on television, what was on Facebook, what everybody was telling her, what her family was telling her. Because everybody does this. We all know best what everybody needs to do. And she just let all of her beliefs go completely. And that's one of the first things she wants you to do. A belief is a thought you continue to think. And if somebody told you a belief because they experienced it or they heard it, how can you believe it if you didn't have the experience? So any belief, just let them go. If you think something is bad for you because somebody said it is, it will be. And so Cari, she knows there's not one thing she cannot do, have, be, eat, anything that can harm her. If she wanted to, she could smoke 12 cartons of cigarettes if she wanted to pay for it, back to back, and not cause any damage. And same with aging, people. We've all believed that there's signs of aging, and you're all agreeing to it. So Cari stepped away from what you're all agreeing to. She went inside of her own head. She has lived as a hermit. She lived for a year in Olympia, almost as a hermit. She had to go to work, but all she did was have silence. The TV wasn't on. It was just quiet. She would paint. She would be silent. And then she just got to know everything. And everybody looks at people like us like we're crazy. It's like, ooh, look at that. It's like, no, we're the people that listen to the only voice that can possibly have a clue what we want to do. But you won't do that. You guys listen to everybody else. And this is why Cari goes crazy. It's like she just shut everything else off. Now think about this. It's so freaking logical. If you shut everything off, just think you walk into a room, there's nothing in there, no light, no nothing. You just sit in that room and it's quiet. And you don't have your phone. And if you just sit there and then you tell yourself, okay, if a thought comes in my mind, I'm going to calm it down. And then you do that and then you realize, okay, you're in silence. And then a thought comes in, okay, calm it down. You start thinking, I'll think about my breathing. You focus on your breathing. And then you do that, and then you realize you're really at a very calm place. And then you realize it's like bliss. So Cari just did that and stayed with it because it felt so good. Everything on the outside of that felt icky. It's like everybody telling you what you need to feel, what you need to do. You guys, that's all we're doing. So all she wants to say is, if you shut that all off, every bit of it, just go to a quiet space, go to the beach, go to the forest, go to the mountains, breathe, don't think, just allow, and let what is organically you come to the surface and get to know you. Because that side of you is going to show you what you really decided to do here that's going to be so much more grand and incredible and beautiful than you could have ever imagined. You guys, you just have no idea when you're at a fork in the road. And Cari's experienced this many times. You could say yes and go that way, which is the secure route. It's every single time. 99.99% of you. I know those little less than 1%ers because I know you guys. That everybody, you think of what's going to be secure, where am I going to be the safest? And you go that way because that's what everybody tells you to do, and that's what everybody else does. What I've always done is that one, I go to my gut and I say, how does that feel? Without thinking about anything else, how does that direction feel? Like when I was told I'm moving to Detroit for work, for my job, and it didn't take me any time to know how that felt. It's like, I'm not moving to Detroit. So it was like, at that moment, I knew I was unemployed, and it was like, I felt light, and I felt angel wings wrap around me, because that, I was jumping into a path that was unknown. Because we can't know if it's scary or not if we don't know what it is. So we always go for security, which I never do. So Cari jumps off the cliff. Her parachute always opens. And look where the heck she is compared to where she started. A poor barefoot girl in Henderson, Nevada on food stamps and beaten. No. You don't get there from here unless you just allow this stuff to happen. So when you're at a roadblock, anytime, just check in with yourself. The way you know you're going to go, because that's the way everybody goes, how does it feel? And then the opposite way, which is you don't have a plan. It's just the opposite way. How does that feel? It can't feel anything because you don't know what it is. So this is how Cari has gone from a depressed, she called herself Pond Scum. Her first book that she wrote, which, God, that'll probably be released now. Somebody could clean that thing up. From Pond Scum to Superwoman, how I went from abused, A to Z, abused to Zen in one lifetime. And it talks about my abuse and the crap we had to go through when my mom shot my dad, when we had to eat our pet rabbits, when my dad held me out of the helicopter, when we had Alka-Seltzer on our mouth and we were gagged with handkerchiefs. I had a great childhood. Oh, or when Alice put the handkerchiefs with gas over our nose so she could party with her friends. Yeah, so I've been where everybody is. That's where people look at me like my own child. I didn't realize this till recently. She doesn't know her mother is a depressed person. And I thought about that because she has somebody in her life that's depressed. And she's like, you just don't understand. And I'm like, she doesn't know I know. She doesn't know I know because I was there. So I've been there. I've been where all of you been. Yeah, I'm crying on a video. So I want my kid to know this too, because I've been there. Oh, how I wanted to die. So many times. But there was a voice in my head that wouldn't shut up. Said, you got this? Apparently I did. I'll say more later.